I'm typing this in real time, so please be patient. Please excuse language mistakes. English is my third language. Be on a more traditional hog hunt with 3 friends and 6 well-trained dogs. I am armed with a drilling rifle with 2 7.62x54 barrels and 1 rifled for 16 gauge slug. One friend has the long hog pole and a Tokarev 7.62. Other friend uses some hunting rifle in .308, if I remember correctly. We know the hogs are near or in a cornfield, since the owner told us how badly he wishes for someone to go out and remove them. We agree that we can hunt and if necessary camp on his property if we try to decimate or eradicate the hog population around his field. Fuck yeah. The day has come. We arrived on the farmer's property and set up camp, as it is inconclusive if we will be able to corner the hogs during the first day. As soon as we parked the cars on a clearing near the east end of the damaged field, I look over to the other car which transports the dogs and see them go apeshit for a few seconds, then suddenly quiet down. Think nothing of it, as dogs in packs can be a little impulsive sometimes. We start to unpack. The dogs are put on 30-meter leashes under their own tarps in groups of 2. They know from previous trips how to manage the long leashes without becoming too tangled. Usually they move around wildly sniffing everything, but know well enough they have to take the same route back to the tree they are tied to in order to not become tangled to another tree's stem or other vegetation. This time, however, they do not move from the tree. They rest under it, waving their heads around, being really still and quiet. My 2 friends become worried that something might have been wrong with the food we gave them a few hours ago. We check out the dogs for a bit, talking to them. They seem calm but extremely cautious, almost submissive, not submissive in the way they would be towards us, but submissive and cautious as if they had newborn. Since it's already 4 p.m., one of my friends and me decide to patrol 2 sides of the field for a short time while my other friend prepares a butchering corner in the camp and begins to make a meal for all of us. The field, or cluster of fields, are about 2x4 kilometers with forest on 2 sides, grassland on one and a highway on the other. Our camp is positioned at one of the field's short sides opposite of the highway and in between the grassland and forest. We follow one side of the field along and into forest, since that is where hogs probably retreated to. We walk about 6 kilometers looking for tracks and find quite a lot of them. Lots _ hogs.gif. The outer corners of the field are fucked up from hog rampage and the soil is turned over in many places. Digun Bagud. The more of such places we find, the more our hopes diminish. They all look older than a week. No freshly turned soil, no fresh shit. Pretty close to the farm we follow a track about 200 m into the woods, where it ends abruptly in a ditch that's filled with insane amounts of hog fur and some shreds of intestines. Almost no blood, only single drips in a few places. The fur is in clean and orderly chunks held together by skin residue, not ruffled, not bent. My friend points out that someone must have shot at least 2 of the animals and tried to skin them right here without adequate tools, maybe out of fear of being caught poaching. We take notes on the situation and decide to leave it as it is. Then we head back to camp around the field again, but zigzagging 100 to 200 meters besides it in the forest, looking for the largest and most established trails we can find. Some trails are found, but they are all old ones with fresh and dead flora covering them almost entirely. None of them show signs of recent usage. Our hopes begin to drop a bit. We decide to make another walk with a freshly washed dog in the morning, so its stench does not protrude too far and warn the wild animals. Upon return to camp, we are greeted by a bewildered-looking friend number 2. He comes towards us, points at the dogs. The dogs lay in a coil together, heads on the ground, appearing sickly. We try to give them food, they shy away from it. We try to separate them from each other, they resist, so we conclude something must have been wrong with their first meal and we must watch them closely overnight. Maybe it will be better in the morning. With nightfall we drink and eat, but the situation is tense. The dogs worry us and we see our hunting trip fall apart in front of our eyes. We decide to keep watch on the dogs in turns and lengthen the night to compensate our sleep deficit. I have the second watch. Staying awake for 3 hours after already having slept for 3 hours is a fucking nightmare. I drink about half a liter of coffee and begin to read. Get woken up by a succession of ear-ringing loud bangs. A short pause. Then a really loud and really fucking close bang right to my side above my head. I bolt to my feet as my own flashlight that has fallen to the ground still shining from when I was reading blinds me in my prone position. I go for the knife on my belt, at the same time it pops to my conscience that the bangs were 7,62x25 bangs for sure. Even though I cannot see anything but the bit of ground in front of my flashlight, I calm down knowing only my friend could have fired his Tokarev which he kept in his sleeping bag. I take a deep breath and quickly reach to my flashlight to turn it off. In that moment I realize the fire is out. Completely out, not even glowing anymore. It was fully ablaze when I fell asleep no more than 1 hour ago. Before I can catch my breath I feel a hand being placed softly on my shoulder from behind and hear my friend No.1's voice whisper. 2 or 3 humans with guns, they took pot shots at us from a distance. Be still, get the drilling from the car. As I reach the car crouching I encounter friend number 2. Friend number 2 gets beside me swearing under his breath. He is naked. He is dragging something. I don't understand what he is doing. He is unarmed but has his arms full with something I can't identify in the dark. He whispers, "The dogs, man." "What about the dogs?" I ask. "Where are they? Why didn't you lead them here? They are gone anon." He presses the coil into my arms and I realize what it is he was holding. The ends of 180 meter of leash. The leashes are coiled up into a ball. What the fuck? I don't know, they must have stolen them. Didn't hear any barking before the shots. I get my drilling and start loading it. Friend number 2 begins loading his hunting rifle as well. Friend number 3 comes to the car asking for the dogs. We tell him they are gone. He what's hard as fuck begins grabbing his 2 preloaded mags from the pack in a hurry. We sprint 10 meters into the field and throw ourselves on the ground. Lie there waiting. 2 hours later the sun behind the horizon begins to light up the sky. Nothing happened since the shots. It was eerily quiet during the entire time. We only spoke a few sentences during this time. Tensest situation of my lifetime. As the sun passes over the horizon we begin to scan the forest with our scopes. No movement for about an hour. Usually during this time deer can be seen frequently, not today. The birds appear to be very quiet, their calls are short, loud, and sound nothing like the usual chirping in the morning. Maybe it's the paranoia but it seems like all animals have deserted this area. We decide to go look for tracks or prints on the ground over by the dog's tarps. I curse myself for not having driven my ex-military Mercedes Wolf with the phone in it. The tarps are on the ground, strings torn from the trees, the ground is covered in fur in all different colors, there is very little blood, maybe not even enough for one bled out dog. A thought rushes through my mind, back and forth, even though the leashes are severed and the tarps are torn, the ground looks orderly except for the fur scattered everywhere, the grass is flat but not in disarray, there are no claw marks in the earth, there is only dog fur, then I see it. A large sheer flap of skin, with very little fur on it, plastered to a tree at head height. Upon closer inspection the fur appears to have been pulled out of the skin. A feeling like ice water runs down my back. I turn my head to take a look at my friends. We are staring at each other quietly in awe and disgust. It dawned on us that our dogs may not be alive anymore at all. We stand there speechless for what feels like eternity. One of my friends takes a breath like preparing to speak but does not say a word. I take his job by speaking out. We must go look if we find them. Friend number 1 suggests that friend number 2 drives back to the nearest village to alarm the police and return with them while friend number 1, his Tokarev and myself with he drilling must go and follow the trail of fur and blood drippings ASAP. Friend number 2 leaves his hunting rifle for friend number 1 and we hurry to load all unnecessary equipment into his car. We watch him drive off and turn to look for a track from the dog's camp. Some fur is scattered into the direction of the woods, pieces of hair here and there tell of some dog or dogs being dragged into the bushes. We follow the hair. After a few hundred meters, pieces of fur become more and more scarce, but something seems to be dragged over the ground as well. Not like someone dragged 6 dogs, more as if someone carried an animal with one of its limbs on the ground, inconsistent, hard to see and hard to follow. After having walked for about 2 kilometers, we cannot find any continuation to the track. We go in different directions to inspect the close vicinity. At first I find nothing, then fur again, a small bush of it at the foot of a tree. More hair on the tree's stem. More by accident than by intention. I lift my head. The shock I get from what I see is so bad it almost knocks me to the ground. In the tree, obscured by some lower branches, I can see a bag of fleshy substance and color. It's not tied to the tree but simply flung over the branch. Bewildered, I look around me just to discover more unidentifiable bags of flesh in the trees above me, some of them right in the treetops, at least 15 to 20 meters high. I yell my friend's name, get behind the nearest tree and check the chambers of my drilling. The color of the brass shining from the breech helps me calm myself just enough for me to collect my thoughts. I yell my friend's name again. No response. I begin to check the surrounding and hastily retreat from the open area that I understand was designed to be a trap for us. I yell my friend's name again at the top of my lungs and sit in the ground vegetation quietly waiting. I take a 16G slug from my pocket and fire respective barrel into the treetops, then reload at lightning speed. I begin to sprint, not towards the camp but towards the path that runs along the field towards the farmer's house. Then I think of my friend and stop dead in my tracks. I turn around, the drilling raised from the hip. I instantly drop the barrels towards the ground as I become aware of friend number 1 stumbling right into my sights only about 6 to 7 meters away while my finger is tightly clenched around the group of triggers. A mental image flashes in front of my inner eye, my friend, his Tokarev in hand, standing, jolting, faltering, falling. A slug having blown a huge hole through his chest. I call out his name again. I realize he isn't looking at me. There is blood on his neck, mouth, and hands. He raises his Tokarev. People say that when you watch someone taking aim at you it feels like eternity. Eternity isn't fucking close describing to how long it seemed to take. I am absolutely stunned. The barrel points at my feet, then my legs, then my guts, then my face, then above my head. He begins unloading his magazine at a speed I would not have considered possible. My legs retract instinctively under my body and I plummet to the ground like a wet sack of sand. For a moment I lose visual contact with him as I am automatically concerned with not throwing my drillings crowning into the dirt. From the ground I fly around to see the spot above my head which he was firing at. It all happens too quick for my brain to make much sense of anything. I see, I hear, I feel, I smell, but the sensations are entirely unconnected to each other. Also I do not understand what I am saying. What I see is familiar, then again it's so surreal I refuse to believe my observation. In the tree above me there's friend number 2, naked, covered in red and brown mash. In both hands he holds the spine of something that must have been alive not too long ago. It's of fresh pink color and definitely way too large to be a dog's vertebrae. He jumps with all limbs spread out, falls in a horizontal position and lands beside me, face down. The vertebrae in his hand hits me right in the nuts. I cramp together in pain and try to get on my feet at the same time. I let go of the drilling, struggling to manage my body's involuntary actions. Friend number 2 lays face down with no single limb even twitching. I know he's dead in an instant. I fail to get on my feet at first. I look up and try to make eye contact with my remaining friend and savior. He lays on the ground as well, the gun has slipped from his hand, his eyes are open and directed towards me but they don't move, he does not blink, only his nostrils are restless. His hand starts clasping for the unloaded Tokarev. He begins to scream unintelligible things, shrieking in a high pitch, then again almost growling as if he wasn't even remotely human. I jump to my feet and towards him. As I try to grab his armpits to pull him up, he flashes his teeth and sinks them into shoulder until he hits bone. Only the reflex to throw my head on the side saved me from him being able to reach my neck with his teeth. I push him off of me. His teeth still sunk into my flesh. I have difficulties separating him from myself as the shock has severely weakened me. I don't feel any pain as he and I combine our forces to tear a large chunk of meat and fabric out of my shoulder. With my free arm I deliver a blow to his sternum and he tumbles back a few steps. Before I can even say a word, he bolts off into the woods, sprinting at incredible speeds. I grab the drilling and begin running too, but in the opposite direction, towards the path and farm, towards salvation. The farmer rescues my ass by hauling me into his car and speeding me to the hospital. The drive I don't remember. My memories return around the time when the police arrived in hospital to question me about what had happened to my two friends. Get told there's no trace of them. Get told both cars, all the equipment and the dogs are gone. Later I learned that 2 weeks later they found friend number 1 hidden in the woods. He had gone completely mad. Wouldn't speak. Did not resist arrest. At his home they found no trace of his girlfriend and child. They have been missing ever since. I have never spoken to any of their family members since. The police investigated what happened but ended up being unable to find anything that proved myself guilty of any crimes. My friend will probably stay in high security psychiatry until the end of his lifetime. I couldn't cope with the stress for a long time. Left my girlfriend. Didn't show to my old job anymore until they fired me. Had difficulties speaking, reading and writing fluently in the following months. Never touched a weapon again. Never touched any alcohol again. Refused any medication my psychiatrist recommended out of fear of becoming batshit insane. Moved to another city where I did not know anyone and no one knew me. My family and a lot of my old friends tried to catch up with me in the following years, but I could never connect with anyone anymore. I live an isolated life. As you see, all this Skinwalker bullshit is probably just people who have gone insane and then posting twisted stories on the internet to confuse you all. I mean, just because some things seem supernatural to humans, it does not mean anything out of the ordinary has to be involved. Humans go insane all the time and kill each other. And after all, there never were any real Yinaldloshii sightings in Germany, you see? All this Antony stuff is made up by people who long for attention. And you guys orly are sane enough to recognize this, no? So stop spreading those myths. If all of you guys were to go camping or hiking in the woods more often, then surely you'd all pretty soon realize that there is nothing dangerous or out of the ordinary in the woods that devours human spirit or flesh. If you feel unsafe camping and sleeping in the woods, just bring a family member who truly loves you. They will surely provide you with some comfort.